Hey there, and welcome to the Working Mama podcast. I'm your host and fellow mama, Karina O'Brien. And here on the Working Mama podcast, we dive into the real, raw, and relatable experiences of juggling career and motherhood. Whether you're navigating the return to work after maternity leave, looking for strategies to manage the mental load, or simply needing a little assurance that you're not alone, this is the space for you. Today on the show, I'm joined by Fleur Chambers, a multi award winning meditation teacher, best selling author, and philanthropist. She's also the creator of the free meditation app, The Happy Habit. And Fleur understands firsthand the challenges working mums face and brings a wealth of knowledge on how mindfulness and self compassion can transform the way we approach work, family, and personal well-being. This is a great episode where we discuss how meditation and mindfulness can help working mums feel more present and less overwhelmed, with practical ways to and strategies to build more self-compassion into your daily routine. And it's amazing as well the power of small intentional moments to create lasting change. So when we're having that witching hour meltdown, well, Fleur comes into the rescue with strategies on how to manage this. Can't wait to get into it. She also shares some personal journey and the struggle she's faced. So whether you're new to mindfulness or looking for fresh insights, or also strategies to help those meltdowns during the witching hour, this episode is packed with actionable strategies to help you thrive. Welcome, Fleur. Welcome to the Working Mama podcast. How's your day going so far?
It's going really well. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this chat.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. So let's get into it. How would you best describe yourself?
Well, I'm a mum to three gorgeous teenage boys. I'm a wife. I'm a nature lover. I'm a awe and wonder seeker. And I guess I have a deep sense of creativity and connection to my natural world.
Oh, fantastic. And so I know you've had quite an interesting journey. And so what's been your career journey to lead you where you are today?
Yeah, thanks for asking that great question. So, I started in the corporate space at a law firm and realized pretty early on that that wasn't for me. So,
So
I
you a
moved,
lawyer?
no, I did all the learning and development for the junior lawyers.
Yeah.
So, then I moved into the not for profit space and did education for disability support workers, aged care workers, youth homelessness sector, and did my master's in professional education. So I really like this idea of creating learning experiences that are progressive, that tap into people's wisdom, that are relevant, all that sort of thing. And then I had my first child and stopped work. And then I had three kids in 3 years and
Wow.
was having a hard time of it, really. I sort of took my very high standards I had of myself, working full time, getting straight high distinctions in my master's, to then being a mum. And surprise, surprise, I couldn't get it right all the time. So I had a lot of anxiety. I was not very present. I was always ruminating or planning tomorrow. And there was just this sort of disconnect between the mum I really wanted to be and probably the reality of the mum I was. And so I turned to meditation as a way to drop deeper into the present moment, to manage my anxiety, and ultimately so I could stop being locked in the past or the future and I could actually enjoy my kids in the present moment. And then when it came to my career reinvention, after I'd had some years off when the kids were really small, I was like, okay, how can I marry this love of adult education and creating learning experiences for people with how awesome I think mindfulness and meditation are. So I started my own business about 9 years ago, and I started in the mum space, providing face to face sort of 6 or 8 week learning experiences where mums came and they learned to meditate. They learned how to weave small mindful moments into their everyday life. And then from then, my business has just expanded to, I now have a meditation app. I've got about 8 courses. I've written 3 books. but all really are joined by this idea that if we can get out of our busy thinking mind and drop into the wisdom and the intelligence of our bodies and our hearts and a sense of awe and wonder and reverence for this precious life, that ultimately we'll be happier.
Yeah, that's such a powerful journey. Just going back, you mentioned about how you weren't the mum that you wanted to be, and you're up here and you may have just been that misalignment. Where do you think that came from? Because I know so many women, we all go through that. I don't know someone that probably hasn't gone through that. So do you want to just go back there and just explain where, I don't know, where some of that came from and also how you worked through that? Was it through mindfulness and meditation?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of us high achieving women out there that have probably maybe done well in school, been good at something like sport or art or drama or whatever, maybe gone to university, done well there, or forged an interesting career path. And we've really experienced a lot of satisfaction for being inherently good at something. And we get the praise and all of that stuff. So we take that high achieving, high standards into motherhood. But it's a completely different environment. We can't control, it's a different skill set. So it's almost like all the muscles we've developed perhaps prior to being a mum, we we think that they're going to help us in the motherhood journey and they actually don't. It really is a different skill set and it's a lot more about letting go. So I wanted to be a perfect mum. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. There's such a thing.
And so these were all self imposed high expectations. I remember when I was having hard time with my first child, I got referred to a psychologist and she was asking me about sort of the rules I had. And I had these rules that I just thought everyone had, that my kids had to have 5 different vegetables a day. They had to go to the park. I could never lose my cool. I could never leave the dishes in the sink at night, all of these things. And she said to me, would you ever think about getting takeaway one night a week? And I was like, oh,
Yes.
takeaway?
That's blasphemy. Oh my goodness.
And so I never went back to her because I thought, I'm not paying $120 for someone to tell me I should get takeaway. But now with the passage of time, I can really see what she was getting at. She was just inquiring about if I could soften these ideas of right and wrong that I'd made up in my own mind. But because I was so stuck in it, I just couldn't see it. And what's interesting is this story I always remember that my kids still talk about. When I had the 3 kids from 0 to 3, at that witching hour, I would go for a walk and I'd buy the kids chips from the chicken and chip shop. And we'd walk along the canal and we'd notice the change in scenery. And we'd come back and we would all be a little more relaxed. My husband had then come home. I wouldn't be grumpy, all of that stuff. And there was part of me that felt like I was a bad mum because I was letting my 3-year-old eat hot chips. But the kids talk about that time like it was Disneyland. They're like, remember, mum, when you used to get stressed and you'd let us eat hot chips and we'd walk along the canal? So I share that story because we can often think the things that represent bad parenting or us not being good enough are actually the moments of spontaneity and delight and the things that the kids remember. And so I always just reflect upon that.
Yeah, I think it's also a good reminder that when we're probably imperfect is when we're probably our kids are remembering so much for us. And yeah, it's amazing how we have this notion of being the perfect mum. I don't know where it comes from. I think we're just trying to be better than, those that have come before us. But we all realize we're just trying to make it up along the way because our kids evolve and grow and change and develop in ways that we can never expect. And it's certainly, it is, but there's also so much, I guess, guilt and anxiety that women actually get faced with because of this notion, as you said, the perfect mother.
And if you were ever to sort of write down these self-imposed ideas around what a perfect mother is and sort of share it with your friend, you'd both have a laugh at each other,
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Because they would be different. They'd probably be related to your own histories, your own childhood, your own mum, your own experiences. So I think the more we could sort of share those and realize just how almost ridiculous they are, the more we could normalize just the imperfection. And I know on your podcast before, you've talked about that idea of the good enough mother. And the beauty of exploring the good enough mother is it then allows us to be good enough in other areas of our lives. So that's the thing. When you have a theme that comes up for you in one context, it's usually rippling out somewhere else as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so, what role do you talked about as well around the micro moments and the mindfulness moments about helping get through that, and also working with mothers. Let's all just also be on the same page. What is mindfulness? So, because I know there's probably everyone has a mental model about what it is, but just so we're all talking the same language.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, mindfulness really is just being where you are. So, for example, if you're reading your kids a story, but at the back of your mind, you're thinking about work or the show you're going to watch on Netflix once they're
Guilty as
finally
charged.
asleep,
Yep.
then that's not being mindful. But if you were reading and you were aware of the pages, how they felt in your hand, the little breathing of your child, maybe an emotion of gratitude or even frustration or boredom or whatever's coming up. So if you're being with what's there, then that's mindfulness. So mindfulness doesn't need to look glamorous or even calm. You could be screaming in your car in rage, parked after a long day at work. But if you were doing that with a sense of curiosity and compassion and safety, then that's a mindful moment. So it's not about calm or relaxation. It's about bringing the attitudes of non-judgment, curiosity, and compassion to whatever your present moment experience is. And I find for busy mums, the fastest entry point is through the senses. So most of us busy mums are caught inside our minds. And the reason we're not mindful more often is because we're caught in thoughts. So either the replaying of the day, the going over a conversation, the thinking about all the bad food we've had to eat, all of that sort of stuff, or we're off into the future, micromanaging the details of tomorrow. So when we come into our sensate world, it's not possible to think at the same time. They're different brain waves. So for me, when I had 3 small children, engaging my senses was the fastest way to have a mindful moment. So sight, noticing the seasons, noticing the color, noticing the wind as it moves through the trees when you're in the park, feeling the weight of the swing as you push your child, holding your child's hand when you cross the road, feeling its warmth, noticing the little eyelashes. Another one for me was when I was cooking and I could hear my kids laugh together. I would put down what I was doing and I would just focus on the laugh. So what you do is you notice something in your sensory environment and then you linger there for a few breaths. And that's a mindful moment.
And so it really doesn't need to last for too long at all. It can, yeah. And so what can you do? Like if you're, I know that as mums, we can also get really triggered and really stressed and things like that. Can mindfulness help bring us out of those moments?
Yeah, I think when you're at an 8 or a 9 and you're not used to practicing mindfulness, I feel like maybe that's not a great entry point. That's sort of like going to the gym and trying to lift the heaviest thing or do some crazy spin class when you're not fit. So what you would do is start with small, low stakes moments that would probably actually bring you a little bit of joy to get match fit almost. So I would suggest if you're going to the park with your kids, if you're watching them eat dinner, if you're sitting and having story time, engage your senses there. And that way you'll be sending a message to your mind that mindfulness actually feels good. There might be a bit of joy in there. There might be a bit of connection. There might be a bit of laughter. Whereas if you start to try and be mindful in a really activated, stressful circumstance, it's almost like you'll be teaching your mind that mindfulness is a bit hard and not feel good. So also, if you haven't been aware of what's going on in your body for a long time, sometimes being with the body when you're really activated can be a bit much. So I would encourage people to start with the quick wins.
Yeah, and then just build up from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And work out what your entry point is. For example, when I talk about this, what's coming up for you? Do you think, oh, yeah, story time, that's the one I'll do, or walk in the park, or take our shoes off and get muddy? Like, what's the one that speaks to you as a quick win?
Yeah, very good. And I know that you do quite a bit of work around confidence because you also wrote a book around this as well. And as you said, around returning back into the workforce and also being a new mum, I know that confidence you can really, and I don't even know personally, it took a real hit after kids and even actually after I returned back into work. And we also feel like we've all lost a part of ourselves, but we also go through the journey of matrescence. Why do we lose this confidence and things like that? And what are some steps that to help rebuild it and also have that self-belief in both career and also motherhood?
Hmm. Well, I think a broader answer to that question, why do we lose confidence, is that the current working definition of confidence is broken. So we are aspiring to something that we shouldn't even be aspiring to. So we have this patriarchal idea of confidence that a confident person has a strong handshake and a wide leg stance, and they always know what they're going to say, and they never feel vulnerable, and they never second guess and never feel like an imposter. So this definition of confidence excludes so many of us. It excludes the working mum who's feeling torn, the working mum who comes to work with a sick child and has had to deal with everything beforehand. It excludes the working mum who still wants to get some more qualifications, who's happy to listen, who's willing to be flexible, who's gentle, who's quiet, who's being with her maternal side at home and doesn't want to be all masculine at work. So I think if we change the definition of confidence to actually include feeling a bit vulnerable, feeling like an imposter, feeling torn, we can be with those things and be confident as well. Like one doesn't need to exclude the other. So I think the trick is to identify the insecurity going back to work. Oh, I don't fit into my clothes as well as I used to. I look terrible in this suit. Everyone's younger than me. They're all going out for the drinks on Friday night. I'm not as trained as well as everyone else. Whatever you're going through, confidence really is about being with that vulnerability, letting it be there, but going ahead anyway. And so realizing that you're so much more than just that insecurity or vulnerability. So it's not that we need to get rid of these things in order to show up. We allow them a seat at the table, but we don't over identify with them.
And also then really hold on to it and think that we're not, I guess, being as good as what we possibly can, but also recognizing those insecurities are okay and building up from there.
And ultimately, those insecurities, if we can be tender with them like we would be tender with our own children, then we're going to make a beautiful contribution to the workforce. Because if we can be with our own weird and wonderful ways, we can also be with other people's weird and wonderful
Yeah.
ways too. So it'll make us better team members, better bosses, more creative, better as we do collaborative projects, all of those things.
Yeah, very good. And certainly after a long working day, as you know, when you're a mum and often been in the office, or even if you're working from home, we all talk about the famous second shift and the chaos of dinner, bath, bedtime, and as you said earlier, the witching hour. And I know that it can feel at times like a bit of an emotional landmine, and you never know where you step, and there's another landmine going off. Why is this transition so emotionally intense for working mums or even just all mums? And I know personally sometimes I feel I'm like this emotional sponge trying to soak it all in, and I'm also then having to internalize it. And then what strategies can we do to help make this smoother for both ourselves and also our kids?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I love that you've actually given it a name, the second shift, because really it is. I think that if work has been stressful, which most works are to an extent, then that activates the nervous system. So we're probably in some form of fight or flight when there's an energy of sort of fear, striving, scarcity, lack, not enough, all of that stuff. Our bodies become a little bit tighter. And this actually then causes emotional dysregulation. So there's the potential that we're taking the stress, the mind and body stress from the working day, and then we get home and it's being transferred into an emotional sort of disequilibrium. We can potentially be bringing in also some guilt, some shame, some perfectionism. We get home and we think we need to do it perfectly because we've been at work all day. I think the evening is probably laden with dysregulation and maybe some high expectations. So, a strategy could be to use your transitions wisely. So, mums actually have a lot of transitions in the day. We go from home, maybe to the car or the train, to work. Maybe we pick the kids up. There's that moment where we're waiting at the kindy waiting room, or when we come home from work before we come inside. And instead of just coming in, or instead of scrolling on our phone, we can use those moments of transition to let go of what came before. Forgive ourselves if we need to, let go of that conversation. Placing a hand on the heart can be incredibly powerful. It's just when I come in and I put my hand on the front door, I place my hand on my heart and I'm just like, what's there? There's some exhaustion. There's some apprehension about what I'm going to find inside. There's some annoyance that I didn't get something done today. There's some replaying. I'm like, okay, here it is. And then maybe just letting it go as best you can. So you're bookmarking one part of the day before you come in. And that doesn't mean that you'll walk in and everything will be perfect, but it just means that you're not bringing the baggage of the moment before into the next one.
What's the symbolism of the hand on the heart?
So the heart doesn't lie. The heart will have some intelligence and some wisdom that is beyond the mind. So if you sat in your car and you're like, okay, how am I feeling? What do I want to let go? It'll probably be really, really busy. Emails, that package that I didn't get to send, that annoying conversation. But if you actually place your hand on your heart, the feeling of warmth from your hand onto your body will just drop you into your heart and you'll access some deeper wisdom like, I'm exhausted. Feel really sad that I had that interaction with that person. I feel overwhelmed about doing the sports drop offs and the kitchen now. And there'll be a moment of meeting yourself and it'll be a truth. And when you meet yourself, even for 30 seconds in that way, it's actually quite delightful.
Yeah, really, really powerful to really have that strategy because I know it's what a lot of mums often feel that just that that real, I guess, emotional exhaustion and that transition period can also be quite stressful as well. So, and also you got tired kids at the end of the day that you're having to navigate all their interesting emotions as well. And it was funny last night I actually put up a poll on Instagram about just some feedback and what people wish they knew about mums and about motherhood and being a working mum. And this is what my next question relates into is about working mums feeling like we're constantly running on empty. And someone said about how sleep deprived we and how burnt out we managing it all. And someone also then said hormones and emotions at work and how to manage this personally and educate senior leadership. There were just a few others, but there was a lot around the mental load and exhaustion and burnout and things like that. And burnout doesn't just come from like there's lots of micro moments, I guess, as well of those daily demands. And what are some ways, and I know that you talk about micro moments and burnout, I experienced this towards the end of last year. I was just kept going and going and going and didn't get off the treadmill early enough. But what are some ways that and some strategies that we can use micro moments throughout the day to try and recharge so we're not, I guess, getting to the end and completely depleting our cup and also feeling so burnt out? Because mums often are the heartbeat of the family. And so if we're not feeling great, often then that will then have an influence then on the rest of the family as well.
Yeah, they're such important conversations to be having. And the more we talk about this, the more things will change. So I think there's two elements to it. There's the systemic stuff, obviously, which some of your audience sort of tapped into about educating senior management. I think people need to be fighting that big battle for sure. We can't do it on our own as individuals through micro moments. So that conversation and those changes definitely need to happen. But on a more individual level, it's interesting because we think that we have to have the micro moments to energize, to sort of, but even that has like a language of, got to have a micro moment to give me more energy so I can keep on going, doing all this stuff that's burning me out. So we actually need the micro moments to meet ourselves where we're at. And that might be exhaustion. That might be rage. That might be guilt. That might be joy. That might be sadness. So it's less about having a micro moment to energize ourselves so we can continue to burn ourselves out, and more about the ability to meet yourself where you are. So many mums are disconnected from themselves. And that was,
What do you mean by that?
well, if I ask you, do you really know, like beyond the kids and beyond work, like, do you really know what lights you up? What makes you feel creative, expansive, deeply alive? Like, do you know that? And do you have a sense of friendliness towards yourself and that?
Probably something mums often don't reflect on. They may have known before kids, but not necessarily after.
Yeah. So I think, and when you're juggling all the balls, like, you don't really want to be asking yourself, what are my deepest desires? That sounds ridiculous when you're trying to put sandwiches in the lunch boxes and everything. But what I noticed at the start of my mindfulness journey was that I was lonely. It was a very bizarre feeling because I was actually never alone. Three small kids, someone coming with me to the bathroom. And I remember one time I paid a babysitter just so I could go out. I think maybe I tried to go to a movie or something, but I felt so lonely. I felt uncomfortable that I wasn't with the kids, but I wanted time away from the kids. That real
Yeah.
confusion and just like this unsettling feeling. So there's a loneliness that comes with being a mum when you're never actually alone. And it's a disconnect from who you really are and a disconnect from a sense of friendliness towards yourself. I think it's quite frightening to realize how mean we are to ourselves. Like if you were to write down all the things you said to yourself each day, shouldn't have had that piece of cake, my bum looks fat in these work pants, I didn't make a healthy enough lunch, that mum's doing more stuff with their kids, their lives look better than mine, all of this stuff. This is just very unkind to who we are. And so I think part of the mindful moments needs to be about cultivating this sense of friendliness towards ourselves and how exhausted we are. So maybe you sit in the car at the end of the day for 1 minute and you just acknowledge, I'm tired. Wow, I feel really tired. And in meeting yourself, something will shift.
So you do that moment, you sit in the car, acknowledge, right, I'm exhausted. What would then be like you've had that moment, you said something to but how can we, I guess, create that shift? Or is it something that inherently, I guess, mentally we're acknowledging it so we will consciously do something about it? How can we, I guess, take steps to help us move forward? Or probably something else, it's probably another question as well about reconnecting in with ourselves if we've had that and acknowledge that we've got that disconnect.
Yeah, I think the first step is awareness, and you'll be amazed at the power of just awareness. We often think we then need to strategize and book in a yoga session or a girls' night out or a bath or whatever, but often it's just the awareness that is enough to shift something. So you become aware of when you're tired. You become aware of when your body is sore. You become aware of when you've been scrolling on the phone too long and your neck's sore. So the body will send you subtle cues. And then if you ignore them, then it will scream. And screaming is burnout. So to get to burnout, let's say burnout's an 8 or a 9, your body has actually been letting you know that something is out of alignment at a 2, at a 3, at a 4, and you've ignored it. Doesn't mean it's your fault that you've ignored it. Maybe we haven't had any choice. But if we can get a little bit better at being curious about the early warning signs, and so if we do that, then perhaps one night a week, we don't watch a Netflix show or scroll through social media. We actually just hop into bed the second our kids go to sleep. Or maybe we realize we're tired and we don't accept to be on that committee for school. Maybe we say to someone that's having a birthday party, the kids' birthday party, would you mind if you drove the kids? Because I'm actually exhausted tonight. So it doesn't mean that we just stop having any responsibility or stop contributing, but it means we ask for a little bit of help. We have the courage to have stronger boundaries. And there's this sense of being on our own side.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And sometimes actually asking for help as mums is what you said, I think earlier about the perfect mum. Often we think that we need to do it all ourselves, but we really don't. Asking for help is, I often say, it's such a strength and not a weakness. And acknowledging that you need that help is also so powerful as well.
So I think the wellness world can feel pretty busy and it can be like, got to be drinking this smoothie, got to be doing Pilates, got to be counting your steps. Wellness can actually be simple. It doesn't need to be another thing you add to your to-do list or feel terrible about when you don't get it done. It can be as simple as a hand on the heart after a busy day, cleaning your teeth mindfully, washing your face and getting your mascara off at the end of the night, and doing that not because you have to, but because it's a nice, tender thing to do for yourself. So it's about almost like the texture within which you do something, like you can eat a piece of fruit and you're like, oh, I've got to eat this piece of fruit because it's healthy. Or you can look at the fruit, see its color, see its texture, feel a little bit grateful and acknowledge that it's going to do something nice to your body. So it's almost like you can do exactly the same thing but just with like a slightly more gentle, nurturing towards yourself attitude, I think. And the other thing to remember is busyness is contagious. So when we're busy at work and busy doing all the mum things, our nervous system gets revved up. Our fear circuitry gets heightened, our creative thinking is reduced, our collaboration is reduced. And so busy just leads to more busy. Like, have you ever had a to-do list and you're like, wow, I'm just adding more and more stuff to this until you're putting the most ridiculous things on your to-do list? So that's because busy is a habit and it's a nervous system response that we get stuck in. So that's why you then think you need to do all the things, be on the committees and call that person back and all of that. So when you move more into a like rest and digest nervous system space where you have your micro moments, you'll actually get some clarity of like, hey, I actually don't need to be the chairperson of that kindy committee. I actually don't need to make 17 cakes. One's enough. So that's what I'm talking about around often the awareness and the willingness to meet yourself where you are then has these powerful flow on effects that you couldn't even plan yourself.
I think that's great tips and certainly great strategies that we can all hold on to, particularly as what we say, busy moms, but it's also sometimes about making ourselves unbusy in the process. So if for people that are listening today that might be feeling overwhelmed, stretched pretty thin, and also struggling in confidence, what's a couple of pieces of advice or even one piece of advice that you'd love her to take away from today's conversation, or some tips that we may not have already yet covered?
Well, I guess I will start by saying if you're here listening to this podcast, you are enough. You are doing great. You are showing up, trying to learn, being engaged, wanting to be better, and just allow that to be a reminder that actually your kids are lucky to have you. Your work is lucky to have you. You are enough just as you are. So sometimes you just need someone else to let you know that. I think we need to normalize how uncomfortable it can feel slowing down. So often, when women are on the precipice of burnout or even like not quite there, they don't want to have that afternoon in bed. They don't want to say no to that thing because they're worried that if they fall in a heap, they will never get up again. And so I think it's important to know that you will get up again. So allow yourself that afternoon, allow yourself that early night, and know that you will get through this. And then the other thing I really think is, don't wait until you're really sick. You hear so many times, don't you, don't wait till the burnout. Don't wait till the chronic health conditions. Don't wait till you lose it with your kids. Take care of yourself before that. And I really think as a start, if people could experiment with using the moments of transition where historically they would pick up their phone to scroll in the supermarket queue, whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil, whilst you're waiting for the toast to pop up. If you could try once or twice a day to swap the scrolling or the checking of your phone with a few mindful breaths, noticing your sensory world, a hand on the heart, I think you'd notice a difference.
Great tips and great advice. So thank you so much, Fleur. Now, what do you do to fill your cup?
Well, I stand up paddleboard when
Oh,
I
very
can.
cool.
Requires the weather to be a certain way. But so anything awe and wonder and nature is how I fill my cup. So stand up paddleboarding, a walk with my dog, a laugh with my kids on the beach. It's about knowing what your entry point is out of your head and into life and then taking those opportunities. But at the moment, my dog is a really, really big one for me.
Yeah. Very cool, very cool. They certainly have that impact on you as well. Now, Flo, how can people connect with you and find out more about you and what you do and also your apps and your books?
So I think if people were curious about mindful moments and just taking 4 or 5 minutes for themselves a day, I would suggest they download my meditation app, The Happy Habit. And on there are meditation challenges. They're free. You select a time, and each day you get a new meditation for 10 days or for 30 days. You have 24 hours to listen to it. And if you don't listen, that's okay. The next one just rolls through. So it's like 5 minutes of guided meditation. They're really easy, and I think you'll really notice. And also, then you feel good. You're like, hey, I've done something for 10 days. I've meditated every day for 10 days. So, the app, The Happy Habit, would be where I would suggest people go. And if people were interested in exploring this idea of wholehearted confidence, this rejection of this sort of masculine idea of confidence, and instead a more gentle expression of confidence, then that book, Wholehearted Confidence, which you can buy anywhere from Amazon and all those places online, and that's illustrated. It has lots of beautiful mindfulness practices. It's got some writing prompts, and it's really a roadmap for a life well lived.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for today's chat and also all the gems of gold that you brought to us because yes, I know and I can certainly relate that there's a lot of working mums out there that are feeling exhausted and that but hopefully you've then understood and learnt a little bit more about micro moments and mindfulness to help you on your journey. So thank you so much, Fleur. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been lovely to chat with you.
Thank you for listening to the Working Mama podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. Please also feel free to contact me on any of the Working Mama social channels. Remember, Mama is MUMMA, or website www.workingmama.com.au. I would appreciate you to share this podcast with friends and colleagues, especially those that are parents managing the juggle. And I would really appreciate if you had to take the time out to leave a review of the podcast. Thank you and see you next time. Have a great week.